Lakini the reason kwa nini nilikuwa nataka people around me, because I felt like ni kama I'm about to die. There are mornings nilikuwa namkanga nasikia like, man, this is it. Hata sioni vizuri. I cannot even talk. Ile glasi ya kwanza kujiekea hivi hata fika kwa mdomo. Unaona, there was a time madam fulani alikuwa analizanga jioni, mbona ukienda home lazima uende home na straw? Namwambia hivyo hivyo tu, lakini in the morning nikiweka ile makali kwa glasi singeishikanga hivi. Lazima ningevuta na tu straw before ni stabilize. And then nafanya biashara ya maziwa. Utapimiaje mtu na funnel kwa unatetemeka? There was a time I woke up na nikatapika something that looked like a lump of blood. Lakini najiconvince hii ni nyanya hii. Hii ni nyanya, lakini deep down najua hata jana sijakula kitu iko na nyanya. I never even used to it. Unaona? Imagine it reached a point where now before niinue mikono nijue actually I'm dying, because it reached a point where I discovered that actually this is not the way to live, but rather this is the way to die. It reached a point where actually I couldn't eat anything in the morning without drinking first. Ningekulanga breakfast without drinking, I used to puke. Lakini nikikunywa tea and then I eat breakfast, I'm okay. Do you know what that means? Tumbo identify food as a foreign object. That is when I'm puking. Lakini the moment nakunywa na shakes na stammer. Sijui kama ushopata like una sweat unasikia baridi. Hallucinations. I used to experience tuliyotango tactile hallucinations. Unasikia niko napandiliwa na vitu. Unaona, I used to experience audio hallucination, voice hallucination. Nilikuwa nasikia watu wakiniita pena. Naangalia kuna.
There is a thin line between being a user and an addict. Unfortunately, many of these people don't realize when they've crossed the line into addiction. Bernard Gakuru has been in addiction for more than 8 years. Welcome to today's episode of My Story with me, Kevin Phillips Momanyi, and this is his story. Bro, how are you, man? I see you're doing some Ronaldinho things here.
I'm Bernard Gakuru Macharia. I'm 33 years old, and also I'm a recovering alcoholic or a recovering addict, 3 years plus in recovery.
Wow.
I was born in Githurai, but currently I live in Ruiru, in a place called Kimbo Matangi. That is me.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You tell me that you're in Ruiru for a reason.
Yeah, for a reason actually. I had to run away from Githurai. You know, I've talked about sacrificing. And for me to be where I am right now, I had to sacrifice a lot of things. And I had to sacrifice the place that I used to live. I felt like I needed a new start. And I found this safe haven in Ruiru that I call home.
Let's pick it from where it all started for you.
I grew up in Githurai, had a normal upbringing, good friends, good family. I never lacked anything. I thank God for that. I went to good schools. I was actually a good student. Actually KCP nilipiga 406 out of 500.
Wow.
But do I say? I was so much into football. I played football a lot. It was something that I was passionate about. And then I went to high school. That can change in environment, can change in friends. I think that is where now actually life actually started now unfolding, and it took a totally different direction for me. Still I was a good student, but I found something else that actually felt like it is feeling that void. I felt like I found something that has been missing in my life, and that thing turned out to be alcohol, and later on it turned out to be an addiction.
Can you remember the first instance when you probably
Back in high school, actually, we had these things used to call jam sessions, where actually a certain day will come in a certain club, students will fill those clubs, and then we'll dance like from 2 to 6 or to 8 in the evening. So that is where basically where they used to sell. There was this brand called Iceberg. Actually ilikuwa tu ni alcohol na ilikuwa na some lemons in it, so ilikuwa that kabita. So I used to drink because my peers are doing it, but I was not so much into it. I was just there for the vibe too, for the fun. Then eventually in Form 3, a couple of my friends went to Kahawa. I don't know what took us there. And we bought like a drink. Ilikuwa inaitwa Napoleon. The 8 of us, actually tulikuwa watu 8. And we started drinking it and it felt good. That was the first time I think I drank hard liquor. And I think it hit a spot in my body that actually I think it felt good.
Wow.
And from now, from 10 now, I think alcohol started giving me that feeling that I never felt before. And now I started chasing that high. From then on now, high school is over now. I'm back at home, and my folks decided that I should do a French class. Since we got results 1 year and talk, so they decided, I think this guy, we should find him something to be doing. On a lot of spare time. So they decided that I enroll and do a French class, and I agreed, since I was not doing much at home. I met new friends there who introduced me to something they used to call ile kutowalok. But basically ilikuwa tu kunywa asubuhi. Before the class starts, you meet in back street, keg, and then you go back to class. In that Kajani also, in that school, I also met friends who introduced me to Kuber, but I didn't like it. But alcohol was my drug of choice. I was really in love with it. So every day in the morning before the class starts, we drink. After class, we drink. So I'm going back home drunk. Unajua ilikuwa a bit tricky, unasoma French and then you're coming back to Githurai. There's no you can put new wine in all the skins. Unaona, unaambiwa bonjour, ukikuja mtaani unaambiwa ni aje. Sio bonjour imepotea, imemezwa na usheng. Something funny used to happen. When you enroll to those classes, they used to give you an MP3 player. We actually used to download French dictionaries, nini. So I used to listen to French words, they are translated into English. So the first day when they gave me that thing, I took it to a cyber, nikatoa hizo vitu zote na zikaniwekewa reggae. So in class, we had 2 hours or 3 hours of listening to audio. So the teacher is teaching there and I'm going to listen to audio. We uko mix moja akalonji mbaya.
DJ music.
Yeah, you are just nodding your head. Yeah, where you are just cruising in Jamaica Island somewhere. It reached a point where like my dad was like, "Hi, huyu hata anaendanga shule kweli, hii ni French gani hii?" I will come up with excuses and it reached a point where actually they decided, you do this, stop going to that school, stop going to those classes because hata singiongea 2 or 3 words of French and I've been there for like 2-3 weeks. Unaona? So they decided to like, okay, you sit here. So what my friends decided to do, walikuwa wanatumianga fare. Unaona? I told them, hey, my dad may decide, no, I should not be coming in, I'm drinking too much. So they used to send me fare and I used to go. And my dad was like, where is this guy getting all this money from? To a point where maybe hata alikuwa kama anauzanga drugs. So now because now nina resentment, nina anger towards my people, they don't give me fare, so I'm even drinking even more. So I used to drink like nobody now would ask me. Unaona, hujanipatia pesa. And then those classes were over. Singesema nilikuwa nimesiki to addiction at that point, but I really loved drinking.
You will drink a lot.
So now the results were out. I got a C+, and I decided to join Nairobi University where I pursued a degree in journalism and mass communication. Big mistake.
Why big mistake?
Big mistake. Because my people saw it as an opportunity for me to learn. I saw it as an opportunity for me to drink. Because now nilikuwa nasikia what used to happen in campus. Unaona, parties. Unaona. So actually I could have gone to so many universities, but I chose Nairobi University. So I got into that parallel program, evening classes from 5:30 to 7:30. Here is the irony. I'm already into that journey of addiction. I'm already loving the drink. And now I'm supposed to attend classes that start from 5:30 to 7:30. From morning until 5:30.
What is Bernard doing?
What is Bernard doing? No, I'm not at home. So what I used to do, I used to drink very early in the morning. So ikifika saa 8 I'm a bit nimesober up kiasi. Take a shower, then go back to class. Then go to class. Now the first year, the second year, I was able to juggle the two. Alcohol and classes. And the third year, my people decided that I think this guy has an addiction problem. So what we'll do, we'll get him out of Githurai and maybe get him a hostel somewhere. So I went to Parklands and found a very good hostel. I also found some people there. So the thing is that most of the students there walikuwa nanga shule from 8 to 5. Mimi nilikuwa nanga shule 5:30 to 7:30 ama 8:30. So by the time they are coming back, ndio mimi nafanikiwa nienda
Class.
So wanaingia club. So wanakam inabidi like niwapitie tunakunywa. So mimi wao wameenda shule, mimi sitaenda. Unaona? Like for example class kama ya Friday nikiwa Nairobi University naweza kuambia like nilienda like maybe 4-5 times.
What?
Friday. We used to even to have a class on Saturday. And this is what used to happen. Classes asubuhi zilikuwa 8 to 12. I think 8 to 12. And then kulikuwa na class moja 2 to 4. Saturday 2 to 4. That was the first time nishaingia class na Mogoka. 2 to 4. Unajua saa mko wengi. Unaona umeweka pombe kwa chupa ka soda ama kale ka plastic umeweka tu hapo. Vijana wanasemanga kanasonga sana. Yeah.
In class?
In class.
Does your lecturer notice that?
We are like 200 people. Like 100 people.
So basically you're back.
So for me, I used to call it fun. Like, hey, people like to associate with me like he's the cool guy. Anashikisha kwa class. He doesn't give a damn. He doesn't care. I used to get those chicks that considered me as a cool kid. Wow. So for me, actually, it was a lifestyle. I didn't see a problem with it. And then I decided, I think this education is not for me. Journalism is not for me. So I came up with a lot of excuses.
This was in third year?
Third year. So I decided, no, my people decided that I should come home. Unaona, waliona like, hey, hostel life itakuwa kijana wetu. Unaona, because like, napatiwa pesa Sunday that will last me the whole week, lakini by Tuesday sina pesa. Unaona, na si ati nimenunua shati ama nimeinvest ama nimenunua kitabu, nimeikunywa Sunday na Monday. Tuesday sasa na mabeste twende hivi bado I'm still in school. So I think they got word that I think your kid manzete hii Nairobi, so they decided I should come home, I should be commuting. Nikasema sawa. So during that period I decided to call it quits, but I didn't tell my people. So nilikuwa napewa fare tu, lakini I never used to go.
Never used to go
to classes. Unaona? So ningeingia kwa joint bag yangu kwa counter. Unaona? Inaanguka kwa counter. Unakunywa ikifika 7:30 you go home. And I was not alone. We had like a group of students who used to do the same. Unaona, pero rather than unaendanga shule, lakini real sense hakuna shule unaendanga. Bag inaanguka kwa counter, ni ya kawaida pia. Mpaka ode mo counter anatujua. So eventually I think pero akajua like hakuna shule naendanga hapa. I think they got wind of what I was doing. And they decided, okay, kama hivyo ndio umeamua sawa, kaa hapa. Kumbuka sasa nao niko into full blown addiction. Unaona, addiction imekuwa instilled.
Now this is in the year 20 around 2010?
28 to 9 2010.
10. Okay.
And then nina hizo guilt na shame. Unaona, I've gone to a very good school. Nimeshindwa kumaliza. Unaona, maneiba na kuangalia. Unaona, so the only place I identify now ni kwa bar. You know, sometimes I used to tell people that I used to feel at home in the bar. Because nitasikia msia akiongea kuhusu disappointment the same zile na go through. Unaona, mtu atasema like mazee niliwacha shule. I can identify with that.
Exactly.
Lakini kika home I'm bashed like hey shule nini. So I used to identify with the people that used to hang around the bars. So now I'm at home. Pale nilikuwa natonga pesa kukunywa sasa hakuna. Si ndio? So eventually unakuwa tu ule msitu wa asubuhi unaamka kalokole. Kuna msata kwambia twende hivi. Unaona, unamhamisha nini, unapigwa, so unaona like yote ni ya kukunywa. Kuna side reached a point where actually ungehang around kwa bar sana upate like keg na intishu wamboniaje sunishikisha hapa na mwenye keg. Mna offload hiyo gari and then maybe nikiwa kikombe. Unaona, ukihang around there actually ama mimi mtu watu sana. Unaona like so utaongea na wase nini. Unaona like usafi kaanza kwenda chini, relationship yangu na mapero ikarudi chini. Unaona, nikaanza ku lose true friends, wale walikuwa wananiambia napotea staki. Unaona, nataka wale watu wananitagava na sasa ile niko na kitu. So it reached a point where like now life yangu ni just you wake up and drink. Unaona, all through. Kuna tu job ulikuwa unajaribu kuorganiziwa, lakini real sense watu wanaangaliwa na like actually I'll get this guy a job. He'll come to work for me but I'm still not comfortable with him drinking. So they used to tell me like if you want to work for me like you just give up the drink, but unajua addiction
is already in the system.
Iko kwa system. And the moment inaingia kwa system ina override everything. Inachukua that ka top priority. So nilikuwa narusha mkono, I'm like okay,
kana kazi yako.
So niko kwa keja, niko na full blown addiction. Na sina do, what do you do next? You start selling things. Unaona, mimi sikuwa iba nje. I used to steal at home. My mother's place because that is where I used to live. So nilianza na kuuza vitu zangu personally. Unakaa kwa keja hivi unajiuliza sasa hata when was the last time nilitumia hii DVD? When was the last time nilitumia hii DVD? Ni ya nini hata? Unaichukua unaipeleka. Unaikula. Kidogo kidogo hivi unashindwa. Hata actually I was telling some other people the reason kwa nini sikuzanga kiti na bed ni zilikuwa mzito sana. Unaona? And then
otherwise you'd have sold them.
And then kuna majirani wataambia mavi, lakini utu vitu foldable. I sold them. Mimi niuza mpaka nguo. Unaona, umevaa vizuri sana. Nakumbuka hii nguo umevaa addiction imekufikia to a point where hauwezi pigwa hiyo do uende ukanunue. Ni like your brother na kama ama mnaenda na mkono anakuambia chagua. Ni gani ni hii? Ana bargain chukua. So it reached a point where before sasa hata waamue that structure kufuata that structure, it reached a point where actually I used to be given money. Unaona, naambiwa wewe nasema sina trouser, I don't have a trouser, I don't have a shirt. Unaona, so they used to give me money and what I used to do, I had a friend who was also experiencing having a problem like me. He was also an addict. So what I used to do, I used to get that money and go to that friend. Nilikuwa nitakagezo na buy trouser moja. I just buy one trouser. Sinanuka mtushi. Then I go to that friend of mine, nachukua trouser zake ile. Unaona, juu umeambiwa ukinunua kujinyonye. So I used to show my mother the 4 trousers plus mtushi na mrushie hiyo mpya. Si atasikia nanuka mapya, hizo nikia zote.
Ala.
Hizo nikia zote. Unaona?
And then unarudisha the other 3.
List yangu nampatia za macho kama so nabaki na troll yangu moja. Lakini eventually that color caught up with me. Juu pero anashindwa, mbona tukienda place zote tunapanga tu trao na ulibai zingine ine kama hizi. Unaona? Actually what addiction basically does, tunasema when one system fails you create your own system. So in my addiction world I created a system. Unaona? And I used to manipulate and I used to make that system work specifically for me. The way I wanted it to work. Unaona, ningekuja kwako ni kumanipulate. Ni play out niko na shida wewe mwenyewe una hiyo shida. Lakini eventually I'm just doing that to feed my addiction. So before even sasa ifike sasa ni like pero na kubaia kitu ndio ishika ni ile vitu nimewapitisha. So nikauza vitu, nimeuza vitu za mama, nimeuza nini, unafungua store unapita na gunia msumari. Unaona? Like nguo, I think wazini vitu zote nimeuza kitu nilimanga sana ni nguo. Because unapata like una very expensive shirt ama a very expensive shoe. Lakini mtu kwa baa ameiona na ametambua you have an alcohol problem and you cannot say no to a drink. So what do you first do? Atakubuy a drink. Hapa kumwambia manzi kiatu yako imenibamba sana. Amwambia yako amesunuzie hiki kiatu. Mwambie do. But that kadhot amekwambia niuzie kiatu. Itakaa nawe for the rest of that day. Hiyo jioni utaenda kumtafuta. Hata kama kwambia ulisemaje? Mwambie utatoa ngapi?
Unauza kiatu umevaa.
Unaona? Mimi nishauza top, huyo mtu akanipatia yake. Usingekaa kwa baki for cover. So addiction ilifikisha sana kwa experience sasa after campus na hapo that space that period. Imereach to a point where sasa nimekuwa ule mlevi wa sleepers. Unaona atokanga asubuhi. Watu wanaenda job wanaenda kwa local. Watu wanajua yeye ni member pale. Unaona, simu unanga, huwezi trackiwa. Unaona, umekuwa like you are living at the mercy of circumstances actually. Life ina happen tu nayo. Nilikuwa nasemanga hivi, and I think people who have been in addiction can identify with this. Provided uko na pesa ya kujikalisha chini, hata kama ni 30 bob kwa bar, ubuy keg, ukae chini. Wanaitanga kutega. Mimi nimetega. Unaweka 30 bob hapo, unashinda ukikistua kwa kadri. Unaikisu kunywi. Unaona? Like we used to say prayers. I used to say prayers. Mungu mazele tatu mtu ananijua tu, apige performance angalau hizi shakes ziishe. Jumi, I'm just drinking to feel normal.
You pray that God brings someone who will buy you someone who will buy alcohol.
And mysteriously some of the time you used to ask those prayers. Imagine. Unaona mtu anakuambia kuje, unaambia Mungu aba.
What?
He used to ask those questions.
Is that really God answering your prayers?
For me that was God. Unaona, mpaka unapata ule mtu ameingia mpaka unamwaga hiyo keg sasa. Performance inaanza. It reach a point atujuange leo ni nini. Unaona, unapata like unakunywa saa 9 unarudi na KO. I was telling some guys kuna saa mpaka nilikuwa na KO yonge mara 2. I used to black out like 2 times in a day. Na KO saa 6 unarudi na KO saa 9. Ikaendelea. To a point where now my people called a meeting na wakaniuliza like what do you want with your life?
Your parents.
What do you want with your life? They consulted. Na wakaambia manzi ukijana usimwachilie. So they asked me what do you want with your life? Nikamwambia I would like to go back to school. Unaona? Lakini kumbuka I'm an addict now. At the back of my mind najiambia this is another opportunity that has presented itself. Sindio, I'm even thanking God. Sindio, another opportunity has presented itself for me to even more train. So they told me like, look for a small college. Juu sasa hatuna hiyo pesa ya university. Ufanye maybe kakoska 2-3 years. Nikasema I've identified needs. I think anaweza fanya. So here is what my parents worry. Walikuwa nasema like ndio lakini usomea Nairobi. Because we have seen what Nairobi has done to you. So nika-identify Yarwiro. Na nika-identify nikasema nitafanya business management for 3 years. I think 2 to 3 years, something like that.
Bearing in mind that your mass comm in UON, you left at 3rd year. French, not done.
Opportunities that are coming here and there. Like I had a problem of completing things.
Exactly.
No. Actually, the only thing that I was good in was drinking. I think drinking was the only thing that I started and used to complete. Actually, in addition to Nasemanga, we do not have a drinking problem. We have a stopping problem. The moment you start drinking, you cannot find it. You cannot stop. So nikaanza business management hapa Nibs Ruiru. Unaona? The first month ni ile ya kioo. Vijana wadogo nasikia wakisemanga ni ya kioo, ile ya kurembesha, kuonesha wazazi kweli. Unaona? I'm back. Unaona? I'm now focused. Unaona mpaka unapiga official vizuri sana kabag. Mpaka uende kwa maba. They start seeing those changes. Lakini deep down, unaona? Like you know what you want. Nimekuambia I created my own system. Second month, third month, hakunanga watu kama wewe. Nikienda kampuni ka-identify aka-click. Unaona? This time round kulikuwa mpaka na today.
Back in it.
Unaona? To a point you are like, sasa after 6 months. Actually, the main reason why I left that school, nilisemanga mimi sitafunzwa biashara na mtu ana biashara.
The lecturer.
That's an excuse too. Na nika drop out. So nikaulizwa manzi hata si ungefanya tawania. Ujue even what the course is all about. Hamjatoka hata introduction. Nikasema this is not for me. Okay.
There's no lecturer ananifunza biashara. Ana biashara.
Na sijaimuuliza kama ako na biashara. Ni ile tu nimeona hiyo ndio kwa huyu lecturer huyu. It was just an excuse. Like nashindwa nitawacha shule kwa nini? So nikamwambia okay. Kuja kaa hapa na mama yako. Sasa like because chuo ilikuwa isharudi, ilikuwa nimebaiwa tu trao tu nguo, utakuanza ndio nilianza kukula sasa. Unaona it reached a point hata sikuwa nauza. Unaona like unapata like besti anakuja na anambia bayanga hii trao, lakini mimi najua nini nafanya. I used to invest in people. As an addict, nilikuwa naambia wase as an addict I used to be an entrepreneur. I used to invest in people. Nilikuwa naingia kwa bar naona huyu msela kuanga kwa bar every day. Na anakunywanga daily. So what I'll do when I get some good money, nitakubaia pombe. So na wewe utaikosa kunibaia. I'm investing in people. Nilikwambia I've created a system that works for me.
Exactly.
Specific custom made for me. Because this system ya kawaida imenifeel.
Is that the reason why wanasema pesa ya kunywa huwa haikosi?
Haikosi. Unaweza kwambia unibaia chakula ukatae.
Nikatae.
Lakini ya kunywa. So I used to identify. Actually I was telling another guy, me it reached a point, mimi ni Arsenal. But it reached a point.
Me too.
But it reached a point, mimi sikuanga na my favorite team. Kama una pesa unabai pombe na wewe ni wa Chelsea, hiyo siku mimi ni wa Chelsea. Na kama tu kwa meza yako tu nitoe maoni mawili kuhusu Lampard. Niambia wase, wewe Lampard ametosha. Chelsea pia wewe ni wa Chelsea Unaona? Kwa performa unapiga nini kidogo umeenda kuna mswali Liverpool table yake kuna performance. Na roka mimi ni wa Liverpool. Anfield. You'll never walk alone. Nini Manchester. Unaona? Nilikuwa nimeweka Arsenal huko chini. Kabisa. I never used to have my favorite team but the addiction ingeniruhusu. Ime override almost everything. So nimerudi sasa mtaa.
What do your parents tell you now?
Imefika to a point where unajua like and I thank God my parents never like kuniwachilile kabisa because ningekuwa na wazazi wengine hata wangenifukuza. So niliweka hapo na mama yako. So ukitaka kukula panda tulikuwa nakanga kwa flat. Wewe pandanga kwa madhako unakula, mimi nilikuwa nakanga chini. Nakaa chini. Lakini pesa hakuna. So nikaanza to survival tu. Unaona like sasa niko full blood addiction. Ile mpaka asubuhi na notice ina shakes. Unaona ina tremors. Unaona like unaamka utatapika. Unaona kabla nilikuwa nimesema like I stopped wanting a drink and I started needing a drink.
So you wake up, you shake.
I shake, I vomit, I'm not eating. I can't remember the last time I ate. Mimi nimekuwa mchafu, nimeanza kulegeza. To a point where like uwezi kumbuka the last time you took a shower. Nimekuwa sasa addict na addictive behaviors. Unaona, unaweza easily tell that this guy is having a problem. But me mwenyewe sija acknowledge niko na problem. Unaona, people have tried talking to me. A lot of people. Mimi nimeitwa mpaka daktari, nimeitwa mpaka pastor. Kwa organization naenda to counseling services, nimeitwa mpaka maanti. Mimi sidhani kuna mtu wa familia yetu hajaniongelesha. Why lie? Lakini walikuwa inaingililia hapo inatokea huko. Unaona? Like ilikuwa na filter tu nyongeeni tu. Ikaenda for like 1-2 years. And then now sasa mkutano tena ikaitwa. Mkutano ikaitwa tena.
Family members.
Family tena wakaitana. Wakasema man, this is one of ours. Unaona? And he has a problem. What can we do for him? Juu sasa hiyo hata siwezi traceiwa kule niko. Unaona, siwezi itoa kwa mkutano. Sio kama ushifika like unapatanga like actually I was telling people like sasa ndio unajuanga manzi ati kuna mtu fulani alikuvanga juu ungeambiangu ungepatikana wapi. Familia ikaitwa. Kaitana mkutano and they asked themselves like what can we do for this guy? So umekuwa ile full blown addiction. Unaona hata utambui. Unaona uweze hata family get together. Juu utachoma tu. Wakaongea na nikaitwa again, nikaulizwa sasa masomo ni kama yamekukataa, what would you like to try? Then again kale ka flash bulb kakawaka tena,
another moment, another opportunity.
Mungu hawezi niwachilia, another moment presented itself. Nikasema yenyewe sikatai, masomo ile nikataa kabisa. So this time would like maybe to try a business. At first they were reluctant because your business means money. So they decided that maybe it was something for him. Wakaamua kuniwekea ka milk bar 44 sio 45. Hiyo ndio sheria milk bar. Ba. Kwanza actually nilikuwa kwa Kuches milk bar. Unaona? Like na nikakalishwa nikapigwa lecture. Nikaambiwa sasa this is it. You kispoil shauri yako. Na nikasema nimetii. Unaona? And I moved to 44 na nikaanza Kuches milk bar. Unaona? And the agreement was now and then my mama atakuwa na pop in kuangalia vile biashara ina go on. Lakini bado nilikuwa sasa so deep in addiction to a point where ningekuambia saa hii ni 6 asubuhi bila kuangalia saa because I used to shake from 6.
6 am.
6 am. So biashara ya maziwa nilikuwa naanza 5:30 asubuhi, si ndio? Kuuza maziwa 5:30 asubuhi. So what I used to do, nilikuwa nalala na kateini akaeka hapo chini ya bed kapombe. So the moment naamka 5:30 nilikuwa nasemanga it's such a beautiful day, it is always good to begin it with challenges.
Which was the challenge there? Yeah? Which one was the challenge there?
No, the day was the challenge.
The day was the challenge. Wow.
That is how my day used to start at 5:30. So, nikaanza kukunywa. Nikijua mama anakuja kuangalia biashara na kunywa asubuhi, and then I used to mask that smell na nyama ya nguruwe. So mama ananiambia like unanuka pombe, like naambia hii. Anakaa hapo tu 3 hours hapo anaenda. So nikikunywa asubuhi, the rest of the day nitakuwa nafanya kulikuwa natanga top ups. So I used to drink keg mpaka 4 na kunywa tena kamzima na uuza mpaka 10:30 naingia kwa bana kunywa, I sleep every day tangu 2010, the last 6 years naweza kwambia zile mara sijakunywa kadhaa sana. Daily for 6 years. Ilikuwa hivyo. So it reached a point this alcohol is taking a toll on me. Na realize kuna vitu nilikuwa na feel sikuwa na feel kitambo when I drink. Unaona, for example kuna santa kunywa pombe nisikie vile imeteremka inanichoma. Unaona, there was a time I woke up na nikatapika something that looked like a lump of blood. Lakini najiconvince hii ni nyanya hii. Hii ni nyanya. Lakini deep down najua hata jana sijakula kitu kwa nyanya. I never even used to it. Unaona, imagine it reached a point where now before niwe mikono did you actually am dying, because it reached a point where I discovered that actually this is not the way to live but rather this is the way to die. It reached a point where actually I couldn't eat anything in the morning without drinking first. Ningekulanga breakfast without drinking, I used to puke. Lakini nikikunywa tea and then I eat breakfast, I'm okay. Do you know what that means? Tumbo identify food as a foreign object. That is when I'm puking. Lakini the moment nakunywa
kosa
shakes na stammer. Naona siwezi tembea vizuri. Kuna saa nilikuwa nashuka bed na sina nguvu. Juu mtu atakuli. So I really needed a drink. So every day. Unaona biashara ikaanza kwenda chini. It reached a point where actually now nafungua biashara purposely to feed my addiction. Nikishapata do 700, sio mzinga imeivana, nafunga kazi, naenda kwa bar. Nitarudi pale sasa ndio ikianza kurudi chini. It reached a point sasa si niko 44. Mbogi yote mabeshte niliwacha 45. Nilikuwa naleta mbogi yote huko. nina wax mazini nimeshakuwa bazuu unaniambia nini? Kamata.
Calm.
Nilikuwa mpaka nimeundia watu ka form hapo nje. Unaona ule kijana mlikuwa anasema anaomba pombe, sasa yeye ndiye anapiga performance. Nilikuwa bazuu. Unaona? Actually in doing that nilifanya like 2 or 3 kids wa chekole. Ndio najua nenda shule kufanya nini?
Kunywa hapa.
Kuchi, nitafanya tu small chores hapa na pale tubaiwe mzinga na jaba. Every day. Lakini the reason kwa nini nilikuwa nataka people around me because I felt like ni kama I'm about to die. There are mornings nilikuwa namkanga nasikia like manzi this is it. Hata sioni vizuri. I cannot even talk. Ile glasi ya kwanza kujiekea hivi ataweza kwa mdomo. Unaona, there was a time madam fulani alikuwa analizanga jioni. Mbona ukienda home lazima uende home na straw? Naomba hivyo tu, lakini in the morning nikiweka ile makali kwa glasi singeishikanga hivi. Lazima ningevuta na straw before ni stabilize. And then nafanya biashara ya maziwa. Utapimiaje mtu unafanya ile kwa wangu unatetemeka. So I used to stabilize. I had to stabilize. Until ikafika pahali sasa my people wakaanza kuona sasa huyu kijana there is nothing that we can do. Sasa hiyo
You close that business.
Bado. Sasa wameanza kupatia those two signs. Sisi tunaoga mko. Sasa hiyo umemess relationships my friend. Unaona? Like I was telling you like for the last 6 years. For the last tangu 2010 mpaka 2016. Those 6 years I had never had a sex sober. Well sober. Unaona? Even the moment that I got sober nilikuwa nashinda how will I do it? Umemess relationships, opportunities. I had crossed that line between the line nilikuwa nakwambia like the moment you cross that line between being a user and being an addict. And by the time una realize nimecross far too long. Na umebulldoze your way. Unaona umespoil umeburn bridges. Until one day niliamka tu hivi and something happened. Up to now sijaiweza kupinpoint what exactly happened, but that day I woke up and it felt different. It was on June 10th, 2017. I woke up and it was not just an ordinary day. I had like a drink there under the bed, but something felt different. Ni kama like my whole life flashed before my eyes. Something felt different. And I remember I think I cried. Nikauliza God manze ile life nilikuwa nataka. Is this the life that you are purposed for? I remember those days during my drinking days, my favorite Bible verse quote ilikuwa Jeremiah 29:11. I know. Hey, about finding your purpose in life. And God knows why you are here. I asked God, is this the reason why I'm here? Because hakuna pali naenda. Unaona? And then I remembered like hiyo help shape yangu. Like nishaambia yangu like we can take you to a rehab. Lakini nika resist. Hata sikunywa ka drink kwanza. I called my big bro. Nikamwambia I think this is it. Me I'm dying. My whole life had flashed through my eyes. Unaona? Nikawe everything. And then I said I need help. So they came, they organized, wakaniambia we are supporting you all through and we are checking you into a rehab. And June 10th, 2017 was the last time I took alcohol.
Wow.
I was dying. June 10th, 2017 was the day that I decided and I realized that this is not the way to live, but this is the way to die. My whole life flashed before my eyes. Whatever happened to June 10th, in June 10th, 2017, I think that was the rude awakening for me.
But you cannot explain
but
what
I
it was.
But I cannot pinpoint what exactly it was. I think it was a collection of so many things that present you at once. I don't know in a feeling or in an emotion. I cannot express. But you know, people look for miracles everywhere. I'm still to find out what that miracle was.
Wow.
But I have never regretted that decision, that experience up to now. And that is how now after June 10, 2017, I ended up in rehab for the first time. And for the first 4 days ilikuwa hell. Because now we're experiencing a new world. Nimekunywa for like, nimekuwa acting in addiction for like 7 to 8 years. Never been sober. And then now, I'm learning to be sober. For the first 3 years nilikuwa experience what we call withdrawals. Unaona? Sijui kama ushopata like una sweat unasikia baridi. Hallucinations. I used to experience tuligotango tactile hallucinations. Unasikia niko napandiliwa na vitu. Unaona? I used to experience audio hallucination, voice hallucination. Nilikuwa nasikia watu wakiniita pena. Naangalia kuna. Bad dreams for the first 4-5 days. But eventually it got better. I never gave up. Nilikuwa najua, there was a counselor that told me, it is not going to be easy, my friend, but eventually it is going to be worth it. You just persist. Kaniambia change inakujanga polepole. And if you can persist the initial stages of change, victory will be surely yours. 3 years down the line here I am. Wow. 3 years down the line.
How has the experience been in rehab? For how long actually
I stayed in rehab for like 3-4 months, and then something happened in that rehab. They noticed there was something in me. Like nilikuwa na motivate watu sana, especially newcomers. Unaona watu wana come and they have lost hope. Nilikuwa naambia manze, I used to be there. I can see a little bit of myself in you. Unaona, just hanging there. Unaona, tuna believing like kuna tuitango actualizing tendencies. Kila mtu has actualizing tendency. Unaona, you have like kila mtu like anachotango self efficacy. Unaona, you can become the best thing. You can make something out of your life. So they realized that, and they told me like, unaweza fanya kazi na counseling hivi. Nikamwambia like, yeah. So he enrolled me in a school, Kibco, but I was still working there. I used to be a recovery coach for young people who used to come there. Eventually nikasomea, nilikuwa nafanya via correspondence with that school, and I graduated. Unaona, with a diploma in addiction counseling. At least nilimaliza masomo for the first time. And actually tukafanya kabash kubwa sana na mapero. Wow. Bash mzuri ya chakula. At least I finished something.
Wow.
Nikafanya addiction counseling, and then I started working there. That was now in 2018. I worked there until 2019. Nikaanza sasa, at the moment I'm doing a degree in counseling psychology bado hapo Kibco. I'm also doing something on trainer of trainees, and I'm currently the founder of Hope is Home. Hope is Home Counseling Services. Wow. And naambia watu like I'm just creating awareness that there is light at the end of the tunnel.
Exactly. When you look back, especially in matters what has happened to you for those 8 to 10 years, you say, of addiction,
in active addiction,
what do you think is the main cause, was the main cause of all that?
I think I was experiencing a lot of guilt and shame. Because in addiction, what we say, addiction is just a branch, it's just a projection. What actually happens, we have a lot of underlying issues. For example, if someone has an addiction, we cannot cut the branch, we have to work on the roots. I had a lot of underlying issues, and my topmost underlying issues were guilt and shame. Unaona, sijamaliza shule, nimeput my parents through a lot of shame, nimejiput a lot of strain. So nilikuwa na mkanga na nataka to bury all that. So I used to drown myself in alcohol every day. Just alcohol kunipatia that safe buffer.
Exactly, like you're out of the normal,
out of like
worldly operation.
Vile nianza nikasema like what actually addiction does, it's either starts a feeling or stops a feeling. So one way it used to stop a feeling. Like that thing that self-worth. Like the moment I drink,
you're like,
hey, I mask everything.
This far. Do you have any regrets?
No, actually, I always say this. Sobriety is the best gift that I've ever given myself. Wow. And if I was to go back and do it again, I won't change a damn thing. This is the best gift that I've ever given myself. So many things have occurred to me since 2017 up to now. For those 3 years, kuliko zile vitu zote zimehappen kwangu tangu nianze TI mpaka 2017. So many good things. And I know the same God ambaye alinitoa pale, because I believe that he rescued from the jaws of death. He snatched me from the jaws of death. He has something planned out for me. Unaona, me I believe that there's something that I always say. Provided God woke me up this morning, that means that he's not yet done with me.
Wow.
Unaona, the fact that he woke me up this morning, file yangu ijatoka. Unaona, he's not yet done with me. Maybe that Bible verse ambayo nilikuwa nashikilia sana so dearly, Jeremiah 29:11. Maybe this is the purpose that God had for me. That lazima ningeendo hiyo maisha addiction, ndio inakuangaje, and then now sasa nikuje nishike watu mkono, because that is exactly what I'm doing now. I'm an addiction counselor, na jaribu.
And you're saving lives.
Yeah, I'm saving lives.
In the 10 years of active addiction, what do you feel it stole from you?
In this field tunasemanga addiction took away something from me, and I'm going to take it back. I think addiction owns me a lot. Na inaweza kwa iliiba so many things, but the one thing that it stole from me, ile nasikianga like it take a toll on me, is that relationship it took away yangu na wazazi. At the fact sa inaweza kaa chini na mzae tuongee just to have a small talk kuhusu politics, kuhusu ball, that is enough for me.
Wow.
Unaona, tunaweza sema kuhusu money, tunaweza kuhusu opportunities, tunaweza lakini the fact that addiction had taken away that relationship. No, see how addiction is very good at what it does. Addiction is very good at what it does. It had taken away that relationship. Ilikuwa imedraw away between a son and a mother, a son and a father, as brother and a brother. And little by little najaribu, actually kuna tulikuwa tunasemanga hapa the other day, the opposite of addiction is connection basically. I'm trying to connect, trying to replenish, trying to get all those capacities that had been diminished. Daily, every day tunasemanga just taking it a day at a time. So relationships zile nilikuwa nazo ndio na feel like addiction had taken away.
Wow. But you're slowly rebuilding them.
Tunasemanga just for today. Taking it a day at a time. I'm slowly rebuilding.
Exactly. Where do you see yourself in 3 years time from
in
now?
3 years time from now? Nimesema I'm a founder of Hope is Home Counseling Services, where basically what we do, tuna creating awareness that addiction is a disease, and actually if you are going through an addiction, you can actually do something about it. So in the next 3 years, I want to work with a lot of rehabs. No, like I believe that the moment we speak about these issues of addiction, unajua like society imezisukuma kando, kila mtu anazisweep on the carpet, lakini the moment we talk about the surface na tuambia wase it is okay not to be okay, come out, because nikiona an addict I see a little bit of themselves in me. So in the next 3 years, I hope message yangu, I hope nitakuwa na work na watu like sahi pali wako wana your self-worth. Mtu ame lose almost everything, mtu ame lose hope in the name of addiction. So in the next 3 years, maybe something in counties, because I would like to see a society where maybe a county ina come up with something like a communal rehab, where people wanaweza kuwa na check in, wana check out.
Wow.
Unaona, I want to liaise with churches, I want to liaise with rehabs, with organizations waanze something. Unaona, I believe that for a very long time watu wamekuwa kiblame drugs, lakini drugs sio ziko na shida, ni watu. Unaona, nika kublame a deck of cards because someone is a compulsive gambler. You cannot blame a deck of cards. People have been blaming alcohol. Ni pombe mbaya. But the right question to ask ourselves is, why do these people turn to drinking? Of all the choices, why drinking?
There must be underlying issues.
And
like
I belong to a new crop of counselors ambao sasa tuna focus on an individual. Unaona, kuna tunaitangu actually, inatangu sikumbuki that kawali. Where actually tunasemanga people are not the problem, it is the problem which is the problem. Nikiona an addict hivi, they don't see an addict struggling to be sober. I see a sober person going through an addiction. If we can change that perception and approach addiction from that angle, then tunaweza kuwa tumeanza ku take those steps as far as saving those souls is concerned. Na hii tukianza kukashifu drugs,
we lose it.
We lose it. We lose it.
Maybe for those who like to get in touch, are you open to pro bono services?
Yes, I do. Actually, I do a lot of volunteering. I do a lot of pro bono services. I have a Facebook page, Hope is Home Counseling Services, Facebook. I also have a YouTube channel, Bernard Gakuru. My number,
no problem.
0754 889908. That is how you can contact me. And actually, we can walk this journey with you together.
You're willing to help us all?
I'm willing. The same way nilishikwa mkono.
Do you think peers influence a lot in the decisions someone makes?
Yeah, actually it does. Na ukaangalia hata kuna some scholars wanasemanga like actually peer pressure contributes to alcohol and to addiction. Eventually, tunaambianga you are an average of 5 of your best friend basically. Show me your friends, I'll tell you what kind of a person you are. Ni kweli? So even the people that you work with in counseling, in this field tunafunzanga wase kuhusu something that we call social editing. You need to social edit. Unaona, for example, me I sacrifice a lot of friends.
Basically that's why you shifted to this place.
That's why I shifted. Because there is no way you can put new wine in old skins.
Never, it doesn't work like
lakini pia imaanisha tukipata noko kwa barabara si wasalimiangi. What I do is withdraw. Niaje poa, aweze mse, poa fiti, poa haki.
You're gone.
Because najua like if I entertain this conversation, unaona, basically I have a principle. Na nilionanga kwa ile movie inaitwa The Hit. Inasemanga like I don't involve myself with someone or something that I cannot get out of in less than 30 seconds when I sense the heat. Umeshika wani. Unajua the whole process of relapsing inaanza thought, feelings and behaviors. Unaona, that thought inakuhit. Then unaiattach na ka feeling and then you drink. So before akasaiko completiwe, I have 30 seconds to decide
whether to get out or to stay.
Kama vile nimesema at the end of the day, it's a matter of choice. They have consequences, but consequences do not have
Choices. But at the end of the day, you said again that when you're born, you look like your parents.
But when you die, you look like your decisions.
Decisions. Wow.
Watu wanatembea huku hivi look like their decisions. Ni rahisi sana kujua. That is watu walikuwa naangalia hivyo naona like uchalia na shida na tei. Because those were the decisions that were making at that time.
Exactly. Special message to your parents?
I know I've put you through a lot and there's nothing that I can do to repay you. But all I want to tell you is that I love you and maybe nimeambia Mathe that I'm still here. That I'm still here. And to that addict out there who still suffers, I want to give you that message of hope. That if you just reach out, unaona, tunaambiango actually choices have consequences, but consequences do not have choices. Last but not least, to that addict who is watching this, there is still hope. Don't let go of hope. That is why my organization is called Hope is Hope. Don't let go of hope. Because a better day is coming. Unaweza kuioni sahi because you are going through something. But just believe. Hold on to that belief. Hata Martin Luther King alisemanga, a man must do two things for himself. His own believing and his own dying. Do your own believing. Unaona? Then do something about it.
Wow.
Just speak out. Acknowledge that I'm going through something. Then inua mkono. Sasa kazi yetu ama counselors tutaona hiyo mkono. That is the message I can give to youth out there. Addiction is real. Lakini there is good news. Unaona? An example that actually you can live through it and come out on the other side. It's all a matter of decision. Even here, unaona, tunaambianga even when we were born, we look like our parents, but when we die, we look like our decision. So the decision that you are making today, eventually, you know, it'll lead or it impact the person that you want to become in future.
Kesho. Thank you so much, my brother.
Thank you for
That's very inspirational.
Thank you for having
Keep up the good work.
I'm humbled.
Wow. Well, you heard it, guys. A story of hope, a story of inspiration from one Bernard, who clearly tells me that there is hope. However deep in addiction you may be, there's still hope. Reporting for Tuko News, my name is Kevin Phillips Momanye.